But we begin, as we always do, with the big story. Part of a Big Ten Network spring football doubleheader this weekend. Minnesota's spring game, 2 Eastern, 1 local time. And Gopher Football Twitter saying it very simply, it is spring game week. And of course, Minnesota is ready for an elite week. PJ Fleck and the Gophers always trying to be exactly that, elite. And we are excited to have the head coach of the Gophers joining us here on Big Ten Today. PJ, first and foremost, we appreciate the time. You guys had a great finish in 2021. How has that energy and momentum kind of manifested itself this spring as you try to, and I love this quote, you try to break the boring?
Yeah, Rick, first of all, thanks for having us on the show. Always appreciate it. It's an exciting time for the state of Minnesota right now, especially with the Timberwolves in the playoffs. Spring ball right around the corner here. Twins are in first place. A lot of things going on in the Twin City area. But I'll say this is, we talked about breaking the boring, and, we always have a reason why we can't do something in our society right now. And, this team, a lot of guys chose to come back. A lot of guys are 6-year players, have a lot of experience. And then we have to have our floor continue to rise. But the whole challenge to them this offseason was break boring, find ways to be able to create energy. And everything we've done, we built around row the boat and our OAR. So break the boring, do it for each other. And hopefully if we do those things, we can soar to new heights and continue to take the program where it hasn't been in a very long time. And that's been our main focus.
Obviously, one of the key players that decided to come back that we didn't see nearly enough of last year was Mo Ibrahim. I know he's not going to play on Saturday, but just generally, PJ, how is he?
He's doing absolutely elite. I mean, he's 100% healthy with his Achilles. He'll tell you, his religious beliefs with Ramadan make it a little bit more difficult in the spring. He can't eat anything from sun up till sundown. So I'd be the dumbest coach in America if I'm going to ask him to sit there and participate during practice when he hasn't had anything in his body the entire day. Now, credit to Mohamed Ibrahim. Every Tuesday, every Thursday in the mornings at 3:30 in the morning, we had to get an NCAA waiver for it to make sure he can practice on his own with our running back coach, our strength coach, and then our trainers being there with him to making sure he's healthy. And then we can feed him, pump him full of fluids, and then he can go throughout the day. But he's really turned into Coach Ibrahim during the spring, which he's really good at. He's a better running back, but he's going to be a very good running back coach one day. But the greatest form of mastery is teaching, and I think that he's saw it from different lenses and done a really good job of helping a lot of the young backs we have this year. But he'll be ready to go. We're not going to play him in the spring game, obviously, with Ramadan still going on. But we're looking forward to big things from him. He's really healthy. He's got a big smile on his face. And I know he's looking forward to the offseason here coming up in the summer.
He's such a fascinating guy, and not just on the field, but off the field. I know he means so much. I'm going to steal from you because I always love the way that you put into perspective the importance of on the field and off the field. I'm going to ask what Mo means to you, to this program, as you might say, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah, I mean, he's all in everything that he does. And how you do one thing is usually how you do everything. Just like Mohammed, even with Ramadan, he's all in. And it means so much to him, and it means so much to our program. Everybody in our program has different beliefs, ideas, has different backgrounds, and the empathies across the board. But when you look at our football team and you look at Mohamed Ibrahim and look at what we've been able to do, it's pretty consistent academically. We got the highest GPA in the history of the program. Socially, our kids are, for the most part, doing all the right things they possibly can off the field, continue to learn, build great relationships, build healthy relationships. Spiritually, they're believing in something bigger than themselves. We're not talking about just religion, just making your life about other people, serving and giving. And then athletically, football is really important to this football team. And that's what I love about this 2022 football team is football is really important. We got some impact transfers. We got some really good young players. And then we got a lot of guys back who have played a ton of football for us. And since January, probably one of the most intense offseason workouts we've had. And these guys just keep picking them up, putting them down. And it's hard as a head coach to keep having them chase that challenge. It's challenging you to find new ways to make it way harder the next day because everything we put in front of this team, they just continue to knock down.
I knew I didn't get that order exactly right, but that's okay. We can call it paraphrasing. I like the way that you say it better.
You were good. You were good. I knew what you meant.
Close enough, right? Because of Mo's injury and the litany of running back injuries last year, which was something that, honestly, PJ, I'm not sure we've ever seen in college football. So many guys got meaningful snaps. What's the silver lining? How does that help this year?
Well, I think you even go back to 2020 and the meaningful snaps up front, right? We talk about our offensive line and everybody leaving, and we possibly could have 3 draft picks here in this NFL draft, which we haven't had an offensive lineman drafted since 2006. And that was one thing we really wanted to hit on. But you look at our O-line, there's 10 guys that are on our team right now that have started Big Ten games. Nobody really knows that. They think it's just, we lost to 250-plus starts with everybody up front, one of the largest offensive lines in the country. And everybody's like, what are you going to do? Well, there's a lot of guys behind them who have started a lot of Big Ten football games or a football game or have played Big Ten football. And then you look at the running back position. You got Mohamed Ibrahim back. Hopefully you get Trey Potts back here soon. Bryce Williams is back. And then when you look at it, you got some really youthful players. A young kid by the name of Zach Evans has really come on strong, a kid from Dallas, Texas that has had a phenomenal spring, maybe one of the most eye-opening springs of anybody on our football team, and he just got here in January. So we want to continue to create that depth. You never know when you're going to need it. I mean, we had 5 backs get hurt last year, which was incredible. And they weren't small injuries. They were massive injuries that usually happen once or twice a year. They happened to 5 backs. Our offense, our wide receivers, our 4 of our top wideouts were hurt and missed almost half the year each with a lot of different things that were going on. Deaths in the family, injuries, nagging things. It was just a really unique year. And when you look back on it, we won 9 games, which we've only won 9 games 4 times as a football program in the 130-year history of our program. So to be able to do that shows the courage of this football team. But at the end of the year, they were really accelerating towards the end. So really excited about what we can do this year.
Obviously, so many key guys back. We've talked about some of them, but not just important players returning, important coaches. Kirk Ciarrocca is back after a year at Penn State and then a year at West Virginia. So much success as the OC and such a great relationship. Led to a lot of success for Tanner Morgan in 2019. How has Kirk's return affected Tanner this spring? What does it mean for Tanner this year?
Well, it's the relationship those two have, and it's the trust they have in each other. And I think that is a huge, it's huge. It's huge in part of the development of a quarterback is making sure they're very comfortable in the system. Not comfortable in terms of just everything's easy and safe, because comfort's the enemy of progress. But they're comfortable within the struggle of growing and getting better. And that's where I've seen a huge development of Tanner is he's not just worrying about his play. He's spreading it to everybody else. He has and the greatest form of mastery is teaching, and he's able to teach this offense, then just learn a little bit of the nuances that were there for the last 1.5 to 2 years beforehand. But just because we have Kirk back doesn't promise us anything. Kirk knows that. Our team knows that. But when you look at the leadership Coach Ciarrocca has brought back to our offense, that's what I wanted to be able to bring back, was that whatever we believe, we're coming out of there with one voice, one message, and everybody's on the same page. And that's where I feel like we are as an offense right now.
PJ, you mentioned the offensive line. I want to go a little bit deeper into that because there are some big losses, both literally, obviously, and figuratively, with Daniel Faalele, Sam Schluter, Blaze Andrews, Connor Olsen. But you mentioned the guys that are back. And John Michael Schmidt's back at center, such an important spot. And you brought up the fact that a lot of people forget Axel Rushmeyer has seen a lot of action. Nathan Bowe as well in that jumbo package. So how comfortable are you with where you are right there, and who else is fitting in to fill those gaps?
Well, you never feel really good as a coach, right? You can never have too much depth. If you ask me if we could have 150 scholarships, I'd take them, right? Because you just want to continue to create depth. But we'll start at the left tackle position. There's a kid by the name of Ariante Ursary who might be, and this is a big statement, maybe the best offensive lineman we've ever coached. From Western Michigan, we've got guys starting in the NFL at tackle and the National Football League and guard from Western Michigan. Same thing here at Minnesota as we get through this year's draft. But he's incredibly talented. He's from the Kansas City area. And then you got Axel Rushmeyer back at the left guard position. You got John Michael Schmidt's back at center, who I think is maybe the leading choice right now preseason for the Remington Award. But he understands team success equals individual success. But he's played a ton of football for us. And then you get to the right guard position, and now we're starting to talk about some competition stuff. We brought Chuck Philalaga, a transfer from Michigan, who's had a phenomenal phenomenal spring. You talk about a pleasant surprise. In the portal, you never know what you're really going to get until you get there, and then you get to open the gift, and you hope it's what you had on your wish list. And he's exactly as good as advertised for us, and the ability and the willingness to develop. And then you get to the right tackle position where we're going to have some competition. Martez Lewis has taken a lot of snaps in the spring. J.J. Gade had off-season surgery, but he'll be back here very soon. And then we're bringing a transfer in by the name of Quinn Carroll, who's originally from Medina High School right here in Minnesota. So we have a lot of players. Nathan Bowe has played a lot of football for us, as you mentioned, Rick. He actually played center, left guard, left tackle, and right tackle throughout the course of this spring. So we have a lot of guys. Tyler Cooper, a young player. But I love where we're at. We have to get better. We have to continue to gain that mental toughness as we keep going forward. And that unit has to play as one. It's different than just saying, okay, well, we're going to add these pieces. They have to play like an orchestra. Every one of them matter, and they all have to be in sync. And that's what we lost last year. That's so hard to replace. Not just the bodies, not just the skill set, but the ability to all play within each other's limits and then also play in sync. And that's what we've been working on this spring.
Our last position group we'll get to on the offensive side, the pass catchers. Chris Autman-Bell returns. Dylan Wright had a great year after transferring from A&M. Mike Brown-Stevens is back. Of course, can't forget about Brevin Spanford at tight end. So it's a great problem to have, right? But when you have really good running backs, how do you make sure that the play calling is in a sense that the outside weapons get what they need, but you still make sure the bread and butter is there with running the football?
Well, that's what a balanced offense can really do. And if you go back to 2019, when we were one of the best offenses in the country, we were incredibly balanced. We were the only Big Ten team in the history of the Big Ten to have 2 first-team All-Big Ten wide receivers. But we also had an incredible ground game. And that's what I feel like we're evolving to. We've got 4 wideouts right now between Chris Autman-Bell, Dalen Wright, Daniel Jackson, Michael Brown-Stevens that I feel all have NFL futures. The one thing last year was really difficult was besides Chris Autman-Bell, the other 3 were really kind of in their first role as having to be a guy and having really big-time experience. Now they have that under their belt, and when you look at the tight end position, we're better at the tight end position than we've been in the past. Co Keefe was probably the best run-blocking tight end maybe in the conference last year, and I think he's going to make an NFL team this year, probably get drafted, possibly late in the NFL draft. But we have Brevin Spanford. You look at a freshman with Jamison Gears. And I think that's going to make us a really good offense. And then you have the running back in the running game we have. Nick Callarep at tight end. So we have more weapons than we've ever had. Do we have that overall #1 top 10 pick? I'm not sure if we do. But across the board, we're deeper and more experienced and better than we've been on the offensive side if we can keep growing and making those strides.
Defensively, I think we saw over the course of his career that Boye Mafe developed into one of the most dangerous players in this conference. It's a big reason why he's one of the fastest risers right now when you talk to NFL draft analysts who think he could go in the first round later tonight. He's gone, so who kind of picks up the slack? Who becomes that rush guy to put the pressure that you need to put on opposing quarterbacks?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, Boye Mafe deserves everything he's getting. I hope he's a first-round pick tonight. Definitely deserving because I thought he developed really good on the first and second down. Sometimes you look at a pass rusher and he's just a pass rusher. Last year, I thought he was really good at first and second down, stopping the run as well. So not going to only be a third-down pass rusher, which is hard to find in the NFL, but he can be a first and second down defensive end as well, which I think that's why his stock is elevated. And he also did tremendous in the combine. I mean, his numbers are astronomical. They're truly legit. He's an unbelievable athlete, and hopefully his name gets called tonight. But when you look behind him, you had Carter Coughlin in the same position. Then Carter left, and he was like, what are you going to do? Then you had Boye Mafe. And what are you going to do after Boye Mafe? We got a kid by the name of Thomas Rush. Unfortunately, last year lost his father. Another young man who lost his father last year, and he's been dealing with that as well. But you talk about a guy who can play first and second down, one of the strongest guys on our team, incredible twitch, played running back in high school, played a lot last year alongside of Boye Mafe. They actually played the equal amount of snaps in a game last year, right? So he's back. And then you look behind him, Danny Strigow, who's a freshman, a redshirt freshman from right here in Orono, Minnesota. And then right behind him, too, we've got some really talented players. A kid by the name of Austin Booker out of Indiana, who's, again, a redshirt freshman who, when you see him, he's long, he's athletic, he's twitchy, he's fast. He just doesn't have the experience yet. So bringing Brick Haley in to coach our D-line has really helped our rush ends, and I look for big things from those guys.
Linebacker spot, PJ, a big step last year for Mariano Sori-Marin at that Mike linebacker spot. Just seemed so much more comfortable. How does he continue that development? Obviously, the guy alongside him in last year's 4.25 gone. How does he continue to develop in 2022?
Well, your smarter players are better players, right? And if you have a really smart team, you got a chance to be a really, really good football team. And Mariano sets the stage for that. We're not just talking academia smart. He is. He's a finance major. He's in the Carlson School of Management. He's a business. But he's really going to be a coach. And when it's all said and done, he's going to be a coach. He'll probably be our defensive coordinator one day, our linebacker coach, when Coach Rossi moves on, whatever it is. But he's that talented. It's like having a defensive coordinator on the field. He's incredibly instinctual. He's so smart. He gets everybody in the right spot. 2 years ago, he tried to do everybody else's job, and it didn't work. He had to do his job last year, and it worked again for him. And then when you start to look at his surrounding cast, Cody Lindenberg's back from injury, and he looks really healthy, looks really good. Another guy that's from Minnesota, but really fast, long, twitchy. Braylon Oliver's had a really good offseason. Josh Awney's back from injury. And then we have a lot of young players behind those guys. So we have some depth there. Some of it's inexperienced, but guys that have been in the program a long time. So we're looking forward to those guys really taking the next step. But Mariano is that heartbeat of the defense right there in the middle.
All right, PJ, we'll get you out of here with a look at the secondary. I know Coney Durr was terrific throughout his career, but I look at the guys that are coming back, and that defensive backfield just seems stacked with Jordan Howden, Tyler Nubin, Justin Wally, who made a ton of plays last year, all returning. How comfortable are you in saying that that group can anchor a defense even against some of the best passing offenses in the country?
Well, I've said it to our team that they have to be able to lead our defense. This is as deep and as talented as we've been in the secondary since I've been the head coach here at the University of Minnesota. Justin Wally's obviously a freshman All-American, well-deserving. He's going to obviously play at one of the corner positions. And then you look at the other corner position, Terrell Smith's back from an off-season surgery, played a lot of football early in the year for us, and really he's so long, he's strong. And then you look behind him, and we brought in a transfer, Vinnie Bishop from Western Kentucky, Ryan Stapp from Abilene Christian, who are both, again, open the box. What kind of gift you're going to get? We love what we saw from these two guys in the offseason. Miles Fleming's coming back from injury as well. So we created depth at that corner position. And then when you look at the safeties, we might have arguably two of the best safeties in the conference with Tyler Nubin and Jordan Howden, who have a ton of starts under their belt, very active in the run game, very good at pass coverage. And then maybe the most improved player in the spring is Michael Dixon. And he had a huge end of the year. And him being able to play the nickel position, he's huge, guys. I mean, he's 6'2", long, strong, 215 pounds, but can cover like a corner, hit like a linebacker, and really had a ton of productivity in the second half of the season last year. So you start to look behind that, you've got Darius Green, and you've got young guys like that with Miles Fleming, like I said. So we're deeper than we've been, we're more talented than we've been, and we've almost worked a little bit more top-down than we have in the past because of the depth we have in the secondary. Paul Haynes doing a great job coaching them, Danny Collins as well. And it's a really fun unit to coach because they all love football, they're all very talented, and they love to compete with each other, not necessarily against each other.
PJ, we appreciate the time as always. Know I kept you for a while, but that's really informative. Great insight on your team. Looking forward to watching the spring game this weekend. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us on, Rick. Row the boat, Scotty Mile, go Gophers, and go T-Wolves.
There you go. I love it. Coach double duty with the NBA in his mind as well. Coach Fleck and the Gophers, part of the Saturday spring football doubleheader. 2 Eastern, 1 local time from Minneapolis. Watch it live here on the Big Ten Network or anywhere you choose on the Fox Sports app. Maryland and Mike Loxley kicking off their spring game this Saturday in College Park. Start time noon Eastern. You can see it on the Big Ten Network and, of course, watch wherever you are on the Fox Sports app. Huge weekend for NFL hopefuls. The draft starts Thursday night in Vegas. Could the sky be the limit for Ohio State's Garrett Wilson? Perhaps the first Big Ten receiver off the board, maybe the first receiver overall off the board. And Tyler Linderbaum, a guy who is rising on a lot of draft boards, a center, quick hands, can get right to it. Remington Award winner. Where will he go on Thursday night? Well, to answer some of those questions, you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from a draft expert. Vinnie Iyer is exactly that, NFL writer for the Sporting News. Hey, Vinnie, let's start right at the top. How likely is it that Michigan D end Aiden Hutchinson goes #1 overall to the Jags?
Yeah, I think it's about 50-50 now between him and Trayvon Walker, the hybrid defensive tackle end out of Georgia. It's pretty close, and we're not sure. I think the Jaguars have had their decision in hand for a while, but everyone else, they're going to let us know they're around at 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. So I think you look at Aiden Hutchinson, he's not going to fall beyond the Lions there. The connection going from Ann Arbor to Detroit, that's going to happen if it doesn't happen at #1 for him, because you look at Lions, I think he fits their scheme actually a little bit better in just the way he can attack the quarterback from defensive end in their particular type of scheme, where Walker, I think, is more of a hybrid player. But Hutchinson, I don't think he's going to be on the board at #3.
Whether he goes 1 to Jacksonville or 2 to Detroit, how immediate do you think the impact that he can have in the NFL will be?
I think you'll plug and play him in right away. And you look at some guys that have produced at that high level. In one draft, you had Myles Garrett and another Big Ten guy, TJ Watt. I think you can have that production immediately. He's going to get after the quarterback. He has a lot of moves. He's relentless. You just put him out there, and he's going to make plays for it. I think looking at the Lions, they need a lot of help. We know that defensively. They have Charles Harris on one side. I think they could really upgrade the other side at defensive end. So in a way, it might be a little disappointing for him to be at #2, but it might be better overall for his production in the future.
All right, Vinnie, let's talk about one of the most intriguing prospects in my mind, and that's Hutchinson's former teammate, David Ajabo. What's the latest on his draft status? He was a clear first-rounder before he tore the Achilles during Michigan's Pro Day last month.
I think he's looking at a late first-round pick and an early second-round pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions doubled up and they had both of these guys, and you stash Ajabo for the future, and they could use help at both ends going down the line. So, and if he works out where he's healthy and can produce at this point, at some point this season, then you're looking at him being a situational contributor right away as well. Again, a lot of high energy from both of these guys. Not a surprise coming out of the program and the way that defense played, but I can't see him really going into the 40s. I think that would be probably the last place you'll see him still on the board. I think he's going to go somewhere in that 32 to 38 range there in the draft.
Yeah, it would seem to make a lot of sense for a defense that can maybe wait a year, and then you may end up stealing a guy who should be very productive at that spot. A lot of edge rushers that we're hearing about in this year's draft, especially from the Big Ten. Others that hope to hear their names early from that position, and guys who you had going in round 1 of your latest mock, Purdue's George Karlaftis and Minnesota's Boye Mafe, who appears to be just rocketing up draft boards. What do you like about these two guys?
Yeah, I think it's the freakish attributes when you look at it. Just the athleticism of both of these players just stands out on film when you watch them produce and go back and see all their workouts from the scouting season here. Very, very productive players, and I think their ceiling is very high, that they can dominate and take over some games. So people are excited about them. You also have a guy that could sneak into the back end of the first round from the Big Ten, Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. I think you could definitely see him get picked at the end of this round. So I think the edge rushers, they're going to dominate the story starting pretty early in this draft, and then it's going to continue, and a lot of Big Ten guys are going to be called.
One interesting question that everybody's been debating, no one seems to know the exact answer to: who's the first Big Ten wide receiver off the board? You have Garrett Wilson, you have Chris Olave, you have Jahan Dotson. And honestly, Vinny, it seems like right now there's not a lot separating these three guys.
No, not at all. And people realize from last year's draft with Jamar Chase, you get an impact rookie wide receiver, you're rolling. You're going to have a game changer for your offense, and it's going to be a game changer for your team, quite frankly. And you look at these guys, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, it's splitting hairs, especially looking at their skill sets. They can do everything out there. They both can be the alpha, the #1, make the big plays as needed, but also be technical, get the routes run right, get the hands there so you're reliable wherever you're running out there on the field. So both those guys, it's going to be neck and neck. I think you look at the Falcons, that's a good entry point for one of those wide receivers. Then you look at the Jets and the Commanders. The Commanders have really hinted how much they like Ohio State wide receivers. They have a key one there in Terry McLaurin. So those are some landing spots for those guys. And I think Jahan Dotson, it might be a throwdown between the Packers and Chiefs, and Dotson might be catching passes there from Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes here in 2022.
Yeah, that's not a bad twosome if those are the two guys that you have to choose from your first year in the NFL. Let's go to the offensive line. You have Tyler Linderbaum a bit higher in your mock than a lot of other mocks. I believe your last one had him inside the top 15. So what makes Linderbaum so attractive?
Yeah, I think you just put him at center, and you're going to have a guy that's going to lead the line. That's what you want, and be an anchor there for many years to come. He's kind of maybe limited to center, and some people might look at it that way, but then there's some teams later in the first round. I mean, there's some great landing spots there. Two teams, the Buccaneers and Bengals. Bengals are picking all the way down at 31. I think that'd be a bit disappointing for him if he fell there, but then again, you're joining a team that's upgraded their offensive line pretty well this offseason. You get to snap the ball to Joe Burrow. Not a bad situation there. So sometimes it works out really well, but I think the earliest he could go off the board, I think, is to the Vikings at number 12. They're not very happy with their center, Garrett Bradbury, and they can just say Linderbaum's our guy there.
Vinnie, you have Penn State's Jaquan Brisker and Michigan's Dax Hill, two former safeties in the Big Ten, pretty close to each other, both going early in the second round in your latest mock. How do their skill sets translate to a position which honestly has really kind of reinvented itself in the NFL over the past 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, this is a pretty strong safety draft overall. I mean, you'll have Kyle Hamilton of Notre Dame go in the first round, but you're going to have a lot of guys go. Maybe at the end of the first round, Louis Cine of Georgia is another guy we look at. But these two guys can do a little bit of everything for you. There's no defined roles anymore in terms of free or strong or any of that type of deal. You're just looking for a guy you can put in different situations to make plays. The two things you're looking for, are they going to be strong and help you in run support, but also can they cover in sub packages and get after it? Can they cover the slot receiver pretty well? And I think you have these two guys with well-rounded games and also making big plays on the ball, because we know that's a calling card of the greatest safeties. We go back to Ed Reed. Those type of players can change the course of a defense as well. And a little bit of Derwin James, that type of player you're looking for in the back end to kind of be the cleanup man for that defense.
Vinnie, Kenneth Walker had a monster year for Michigan State. He was really impressive at the combine. I think he actually ran quicker than most teams expected him to run, but he's still widely considered a second-day pick, second round, could slip even into the third. Why? Is this more about the devaluation of running backs in the draft, or is it more about Walker's skill set?
Well, I think the other positions are so loaded at this point that teams want to tap into them a little bit earlier. I think running back kind of is seen as a second-round position. You sometimes have an outlier such as Najee Harris of Alabama last year to the Steelers, but Kenneth Walker is going to end up on a pretty good team. Now, one team that I would watch out for is the Bills, because they like their running back situation a little bit, but they could have that feature back that you can keep on the field for 3 downs, and he's certainly one of them. I think the Arizona Cardinals, who have James Conner in there, I think they could also look at Kenneth Walker, but he's not going to last too deep into the second round. It's just hard to find a fit sometimes because we're not sure if people view him as more of a committee back. I would view him as a guy that I'm going to keep out there on 3 downs and really deliver for you in the red zone as well.
All right, Vinnie, got less than a minute here, so I got one more question for you. What other day 2 or 3 players from the Big Ten intrigue you as maybe guys who can outplay their draft slot?
Well, you had Coach Fleck on there, and Daniel Fleck is an interesting prospect. He just is still learning the game, but developing really fast. And I think he can make some team very happy in a couple of years at left tackle and take over there and really surprise some folks with his career. But I think you look at the Baltimore Ravens, I think they need to develop a tackle of that stature, and I think that would be a great fit for him if he can go into that blocking scheme. So that's one of the players I'm looking at. I think you look at the Haskell Garrett as well. I like him, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. A lot of disruptors we've seen come from that program and scheme of late. So those are 2 guys I'm looking at really maybe surprising a few people and going earlier than expected.
All right, terrific insight and information on this year's NFL draft from draft writer Vinnie Iyer, an NFL writer of the Sporting News. Vinnie, we truly appreciate the time. If you're paying attention to college baseball and you're not paying attention to Maryland, then you're doing it wrong. The Dirty Terps now have the 2nd most wins in all of Division I college baseball, and inside the Big Ten, where it's awfully important as you get ready for next month's conference tournament, and of course, potentially the opportunity to get the auto bid or maybe an at-large bid if you don't win the conference tournament. Maryland tied with Rutgers in the loss column. Terps do have 3 games in hand, have played 3 fewer games than the Scarlet Knights. And one of the reasons that Maryland having such a great year, infielder Nick Lorusso, who joins us from our campus studio in College Park. Hey, Nick, I know you arrived at Maryland through the transfer portal after spending some time at Villanova. So why was that the right move for you individually?
I just thought that Maryland had a very winning culture here. Obviously making a regional last year and making some noise, it definitely caught my eye from someone who, was sitting and watching at home. I had a couple of choices, but I chose this program because of, certain individuals like Bobby Zamarzalak and Luke Schliger, who told me all about the culture here and how it's a winning culture and how the guys connected as brothers. And, I really thought that was the key factor in me choosing here.
Yeah, I know you guys played some youth ball together. How much did that help your transition when you arrived on campus?
Oh, it was huge. It was absolutely huge. When you come to a new place, the first thing you're kind of wondering is, what kind of friends am I going to make? Am I going to be that guy that people kind of shrug off and be like, oh, he's the transfer, he's coming for my spot? But no, everybody welcomed me with open arms, and especially Bobby and Luke.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point you bring up about the transfer portal, because you don't just come in and play a complimentary role. You've come in, you've started every game, you're batting around 320 or so. It's clear you've kind of fit in right from the start. So what was your approach as you joined the team that you said, in your own words, you obviously saw a ton of potential in terms of having a really successful season?
Yeah, just like you said before, the potential. Again, I'll go back to watching this team in the playoffs last year. I know it wasn't, they didn't have that Big Ten tournament schedule or tournament that we will be having this year. But, watching them at East Carolina last year, just seeing the potential was ultimately my biggest decision in coming here.
All right, so if it's Bobby or Luke, two guys you know very well, or some of your newer teammates, if I ask them to describe Nick Lorusso as a player, first of all, how would you hope that they would describe you?
I would say a gritty dude, a guy that's not going to back down easily from anything, a guy that's going to compete until the end no matter what, and a guy that's going to give the team its all. And I feel like I've done that this year, and I feel like the team collectively has done that this year. It's not just me. It's guys like Bubba Aline, Luke Schliger, Kevin Keister, guys that don't usually get the spotlight as much. They're all contributing in a big way.
All right, so same question, but what if I ask those guys about you off the field? What is your personality? Are you a serious guy? Are you a goofy guy? Are you a witty guy? How would they describe you?
I would say, just a competitor, even off the field. I love to compete in everything I do. But I do have that goofy side, that funny side to me that, ultimately these guys have enjoyed. But I would just say an ultimate competitor, no matter what we do, whether it's, playing a little basketball, like in the room. It's just going to be competing. And I feel like that's something that I bring to the team on the field as well.
Such a great start to the year. You guys start off with a sweep of a really good team in Baylor. I mentioned you're 9-3 in the league, 33 wins in 41 games overall. What is the strength, or what are the strengths of this team?
I would definitely say our lineup has been very consistent all the way through, 1 through 9, and that's something that most teams, don't have, is like, you usually get that break when you get down towards the end of the lineup, but not this team. Everybody is a competitor. Everybody puts together tough at-bats, and I feel like we have one of the stronger lineups in the entire country.
So you guys come back to take the series over Illinois this past weekend. Now, that's after an 18-run loss on Friday. They put a 19 spot on the board. So what did it say about your team? What should we know about your team as far as that mental approach that you guys were able to find a way to come back and win two the rest of the weekend after losing in that fashion on Friday?
Yeah, and that was definitely a big slap in the face to our team. But something that Coach Vaughn reiterates all the time is staying neutral. I feel like we have that neutral mindset as a team that no matter what happens the day before or what we're hearing about a certain team going into the season, we just have this neutral mindset of if we can control what we can control, that we're going to get the job done no matter what.
You mentioned one of your teammates, Chris Aline, before, but you didn't call him Chris. What's the team nickname?
Bubba.
And where does that come from? Do you have any idea?
Nah, I have no clue. They call him that. They've called him that since I've gotten here. So I've known him as Bubba. Nobody really calls him Chris. except when the coaches get mad.
Well said. That's like when your mom uses your entire name when you do something wrong in the house. No matter what you call him, most people call him one of the best center fielders in all of baseball. So what makes him so special?
I would say his confidence level. You know, no matter who's throwing at him, no matter what opponent's coming at him, he always comes in with a mindset of, I'm better than you, and I'm going to compete and give the team the best chance to win. But he's just a competitor. He's one of the best defensive center fielders I've ever played with, and he's a real special bat. You know, swinging from both sides of the plate, doing what he's done this year, it's something special.
Obviously, the team's hitting's been terrific. Team pitching has also been really good. Your Saturday and Sunday starters, Ryan Ramsey and Jason Savicula, are combined 14-2. Both have sub 2.8 ERAs. What's impressed you most about those guys, and how happy are you that you don't have to face them in a game situation?
Yeah, it's definitely fun not facing those guys. But I would just say the way they keep the hitters off balance. You know, they have multiple pitches that they could throw for strikes. You know, the way they can locate in and out with these pitches, you know, really keeps the hitters thinking up there. And especially coming from a hitter myself, you know, if you're thinking up there, you're probably not going to be doing what you're supposed to.
So 3 of your last 4 regular season series are against teams in the top half of the league, including next week against first-place Rutgers, where you can obviously make up some huge ground. How much are you guys looking forward to those challenges that await over the course of the rest of the regular season?
It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. You know, those teams have had great seasons as well, especially Rutgers. But, you know, our vision is staying neutral right now and just focusing on one game at a time, one series at a time, and this week in general.
All right, so before we finish, I want to go back to the way that we started this segment with that tweet and the hashtag Dirty Terps. Is that a self-given nickname? Is that something from the school, from the Twitter site? And do you guys like it?
Oh, yeah, we love it. This is something that the school has done for a while now. I really think it talks about just, you know, how gritty we are, how competitive we are. But, yeah, it's been a school thing for a long time now.
Hey, listen, you guys keep winning like that. They can put up whatever hashtag you want. As long as the laundry gets done and the uniforms are clean at the start of the game, that's really all that matters. Nick Lorusso, terrific year so far. Keep it going. Thanks for the time, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you for having me.
Here are your up-to-date Big Ten softball standings. Northwestern Nebraska separated by just a half game at the top. The Wildcats with 1 win more than Nebraska this season. And look who is in third place, the Illini, at 12-4 in conference on the year, one of just 3 teams, along with Northwestern and Nebraska, to reach the 30 overall win mark. And that 30th and most recent win came on Wednesday night, and it was another gem from left-handed hurler Tori McQueen. 7 innings pitched, gives up just 1 hit and strikes out 8, going the route to give the Illini an easy win over DePaul. And coming off that performance, Tori is kind enough to join us from Champaign. I have to know, going into that one-hitter, how early in the game did you know you had your best stuff?
I would say in warm-ups, I felt really good. The ball was moving very well, and I just knew that if I had like my attack mentality and just threw my pitches, that would be good because my defense was behind me, and I knew that our offense would be ready to go as well.
Yeah, you guys were absolutely rolling. The game was in hand, and it was a gem, as the Twitter account said. But the one hit you give up is with 2 outs in the 7th. As a pitcher, are you always wondering what if you're 1 out away from the no-hitter?
Honestly, I didn't even really pay that much attention to that. I was just trying to get my outs. But it is kind of, like, looking back, I was like, oh, just one pitch. That kind of changed that.
One pitch, still an absolute gem, as the Twitter account said. All right, when you are going well, Tori, how do you know it? How are your best pitches moving?
I have a lot of pitches that break up, and it's like pretty late break, so it's like hard for hitters to hit. And then with an off speed now, that kind of sets me up to help.
How, if at all, do you change your approach when you're facing some of the best hitters in the league? Because there are some hitters in this league, whether you're talking about hitters like Rachel Lewis or Billy Andrews or Kayla Conwent, hitters that are really patient but can take you yard if you make a mistake. So what's your approach when you're facing hitters like that?
Honestly, I approach them as the same as any hitter. I just have that attack mentality, and just if I know if I just throw my pitches, that I'll be fine.
What have you learned over your year plus in Champaign with this program from Sydney Sickles?
I've learned a lot from her. She's actually one of my roommates, so I have the opportunity to talk to her a lot, and she is very, very good, and I look up to her a lot.
So when you're not talking softball, share with us what you guys talk about.
We honestly talk about everything. We talk about school. We talk about like our friends and family, and then we also talk about like God.
Is there any kind of unspoken language or things that you guys can talk about as pitchers that no one else on the team can really understand?
I would say yeah, because like sometimes like the pressure really is like on us a lot because we have the ball every single pitch. So we kind of like understand that aspect of it more than maybe like an outfielder or something like that.
Now, sometimes I know pitchers can be a bit quirky, have superstitions, game day rituals, things that have to go in just one way. Do any of those apply to you? Do you have superstitions or game day rituals that you absolutely have to abide by or you're kind of thrown off?
Yeah, I have to have at least 2 braids in my hair every single game day.
All right, so what's the genesis of that? How did that get started, and why have you stuck to it for so long?
I pitched well whenever I had like 2 braids in my hair and like a ponytail, so I just stuck with that.
Now, you do realize, I mean, in the deep-seated knowledge is that has nothing to do with how your pitches are moving when you throw them. You're well aware of this.
Yeah, I know.
All right, fair enough. I just wanted to clear the air. Tori, it seems like you have a lot of fun when you're out there. What is the personality of this team, and how much does fun apply to the success that you guys have had on the field?
We have a very good team chemistry, so that helps a lot. Like, we know that if someone makes an error, that someone else is going to pick them up. We know that even if we start off like slow, our offense will come. And then like behind the pitchers, like our defense will always like step up and make the plays that need to be made. And then if someone's having like an off day, someone's always there to pick them up.
How would you describe, what's the best word or sentence to kind of describe what the overall personality of this team is, both on and off the field?
I would say fun.
All right, then who's the personality captain? Who's the player that's kind of usually in charge of making sure that everybody is on the same page?
I would say Gabby. She's always super, super happy, and she always makes sure that everyone has like energy. She's always screaming and being crazy in the dugout.
Obviously, whatever she is doing, whatever all of you guys are doing, it's working. You won 14 after your last 17. After what I would say was kind of a slower than expected start to the year, did something specific change, or how much was it just players feeling more comfortable with their roles?
I think that everyone just really bought in all the way and was ready and had that attack mentality, and everyone really just has accepted their roles, whether it's keeping a chart or playing every single game.
All right, last one for you, Tori. You sit 2 games in the loss column behind the conference leaders right now in Northwestern and Nebraska. Indiana and Penn State are left on your Big Ten schedule. You guys will be favorites in both of those series. So what will it take to catch the leaders, and how do you guys play well enough to do that?
I think we just need to stay focused and keep our attack mentality and just keep fighting, and the rest will just come.
Well, if you and Sydney keep throwing complete game 1 hitters, I think you're in pretty good shape. Tori McQueen, terrific pitcher for Illinois. Tori, we appreciate the time. Best of luck the rest of the year.
Thank you.